Hello, hello, and good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Circuit Stream's 360 Video with Unity workshop. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are located around the world. First and foremost, I want to apologize for being a couple minutes tardy here on our start date. There were some technical difficulties with a couple of our presenters backstage, so we were working through some last-minute issues. But thank you for bearing with us. Thank you for joining us. Before I ramble on for too long, can somebody please let me know in the chat on the right of the screen there? Can everybody hear me? Can everybody see me? Is the audio nice and clear? Just give me a thumbs up. Okay, Nick, Luke, thank you. Jorge, thank you. Great for letting me know. Jackson, great to see you again. Thanks for coming out. We're super, super excited to have everybody joining us today. Hello, my name is Kyle. I'm the education lead here at Circuit Stream. We're so excited that you could all join us today, and we are really excited to get this workshop going. Before we kick things off, a couple housekeeping items that I want to address as with every workshop. You've already all discovered on the right of your screen there the chat tab. Feel free to plug your LinkedIn, network, meet people, mingle. That's what it's there for. It's a community of XR enthusiasts, and we would love to stay connected. So if you have things you want to say or anything like that, please feel free to use the chat box there. Now, at the top of the chat box, there are 4 tabs: chat, questions, polls, people. If you do have questions, we've got a big audience today. I would ask that you please navigate to the questions tab, pop it in there. It'll help us stay organized in today's presentation. It'll help us keep track of all those questions so that at the very end in the Q&A session that we're going to do, we can make sure to get to everything. Also, periodically, and I will warn you, don't worry, we've got a couple of polls that I'm going to throw into the polls tabs up there. They really help us sort of engage with the audience, hear your feedback on how we're doing at workshops just like this. So whenever I say, poll incoming, go up top of the chat, polls tab, and answer your poll that I will post. I've seen a couple people say hello from Vancouver and St. Pete's, Florida, and a few, I'm reading examples here on our chat. But I'd love to know, where is everybody located? I myself am in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. We are getting a ton of snow outside right now, though I do feel like Texas is worse off at the moment. So if there are any Texans, thoughts and prayers with you. Hope you're doing well. I see the Netherlands, Austria, the UK, New York City. Rob, it's snowing there too. Man, we're just getting dumped on. Charles, great to see you. Thanks for coming out. Looking forward to connecting with you again tomorrow. Rugby, England, Hawaii, India even. Oh my goodness, Arun, I hope you're doing well and that you've got the day off of work tomorrow. But thank you all for joining us, everybody. For those of you who are located internationally, I want to let everybody know this workshop, as with all of our workshops, it will be recorded. The recording, the project files, the assets, everything that we referenced today will be emailed to everybody in attendance and everybody who wasn't able to make it out to our session today. So if from the future you're watching this recording, hello, great to see you. Thanks for checking out the recording. But for everybody here, if you do have to jump off, don't worry, you will get the recording in completion. Last thing before we move on, bit of an agenda so you're all aware. This session will probably take between an hour and 10 minutes and potentially up to 2 hours, depending on the length of the Q&A session. I've got about 10 minutes here that I'm going to talk to you guys, so you have to bear with me for about 10 minutes. Just telling you about Circuit Stream, our company, telling you about our partners, Blend.Media, who I'm going to get to in just a second. I'll introduce our guest speakers and so on. Then both Ben and Chris will take over sequentially. They've got a presentation that they're going to share with you guys, really getting into 360 video, end-to-end pipeline process. We've got all kinds of fun stuff we're covering today and some really, really cool 360 video content. Following their presentations, you get to see my pretty face again. I'm going to come back online, take about 5-10 minutes to wrap things up, and then I'll re-invite Ben and Chris back on stage, and we'll go through all of your questions. So without further ado, let's get into it and let's kick things off. So hi again, everyone. My name is Kyle. I'm the education lead here at Circuit Stream. I have a background in law and legal studies. I own a photography business on the side, but professionally speaking, I bring about 3 years of experience to the table, spanning from professional sports here in Toronto and now in the world of VR and AR with CircuitStream in the tech space. A fun fact that I love to share about myself at every workshop. So if you've met me before, you've heard the story, I'm sorry. When I was working with Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment here in Toronto, I had the honor and privilege of working and being a part of the Toronto Raptors championship experience. We won an NBA championship back in 2019, and it was a really, really awesome experience and really the time of my life. Today, we're really honored and privileged again. I like those two words, to work to co-present this workshop with Blend.Media. I think Taya from Blend is in the audience. So Taya, if you're here, great to see you. Thanks for joining. Blend.Media has graciously offered to host this webinar and workshop with us. They're a really cool organization that I'd highly recommend everybody in the audience check out. Blend is a global community of immersive technology professionals, and it's also a hub for employment opportunities, licensing support, premium 360 video content, talent sourcing needs, and more. So they will be referenced in the material that goes out after today's workshop as well. But definitely have a look and check them out. I think my colleague Dayon from the marketing team just input their website as well. So have a look if you're interested. Today we are going to be joined by Ben Hussmickler as well. Ben is a creative technologist. He brings a wealth of experience, and we're so excited to have him join us. Both he and Chris are actually across the pond in the UK, so it's a bit of a late night for them, but we're glad that they were able to join us, and we're super excited to have them hosting. Ben is an award-winning 360 video filmmaker himself, and he's also a VR and an AR producer. He teaches immersive media at University College London in the UK, and his company, SkyEdge, specializes in dynamic 360 film and supports other agencies, creators, and studios along the way. You might have actually come across his most recent BBC News feature on Grenfell survivors, which was starring Les Ferdinand. Ben's going to come on here shortly to share his experience and to help beginners and intermediate folks get started with 360 video content. Following Ben, Chris is going to come online and he'll take over the stage and talk about the Unity pipeline, rendering, stitching, all of that fun stuff, which we will get into in a few minutes here, as well as some of the best practices in the space. Chris himself is a dedicated games developer and designer who also runs his own business out of the UK, and he in particular is passionate about emerging technologies, which I think folks in the audience will be a common theme for us today as we're all here learning about the wonderful world of VR and AR. So what about CircuitStream? Well, we're a Canadian company. We're an educational company. We were founded back in 2015 when we noticed that there was a gap in the personalized training and education spaces. To date, we've trained over 35,000 folks to help them learn, create, and manage AR and VR content. We're a team of about 20 experts coming from all over the world with different backgrounds to teach folks of all skill levels about the value of VR and AR and how to begin building apps in Unity. Now, speaking of Unity, CircuitStream is a Unity certified training partner, and training partners are approved based on their expertise, their focus on quality education, and their commitment to providing the highest level of training available. So again, above all else, we're an educational company. As you can see here on screen, we've had the pleasure of working with some of the world's largest and most exciting companies. Given how quickly the VR and the AR industry is accelerating, beyond gaming, I might add, the biggest companies in the world are taking advantage of this technology to innovate with their processes and visions all together. So for us, it's been an absolute privilege to work with our customers and an honor to teach members of companies from companies like Apple, Nike, YouTube, and more on how to build, create, and manage this content. So how does it all manifest itself? Well, we've got an academic portfolio of workshops like today, courses, and other programs that we offer, and they're all designed to help students just getting started out in Unity, the best practices and fundamental skill sets of building VR and AR content. We do also offer more advanced programs for folks who are already proficient in the basic skill sets in Unity and in C#. Now, these here are our two flagship programs here at CircuitStream, and we break down our courses into two main categories. These are full courses and short courses. Both of the screens that I'm highlighting here on the screen are full courses. And when I say full courses, I mean that in addition to the live, part-time, and online lessons you also get weekly one-to-one time with an expert to work on a personal project that you're passionate about. On the left there, you'll see the XR Development with Unity course. It's a beginner-friendly 10-week program designed to get you prototyping your very own VR and AR content from scratch. On the right, the XR Project Accelerator course, on the other hand, is more designed for intermediate or advanced folks who are already proficient in Unity and with coding in C#. This course is all about taking an existing prototype and bringing it to the next level while also spending some time teaching you some more advanced best practices. I don't want to spend too much time on these programs right now, but I will bring them up again later on in this workshop. Now, you might be asking yourself, what makes us different from other VR and AR companies in the space? Above all else, it's the one-to-one support that's included in and after our programs. We believe fundamentally that the best way to learn something new is to get hands-on, get your hands dirty, and to build your very own prototype with the help of an expert that will meet with you week in and week out. Having the opportunity to work on your very own project for your portfolio is a major benefit, and that's what our students love most about learning with us. Complementing these full courses, we do also have what we call short courses. Just like the full courses, these are taught part-time, completely live, completely online, and they're both beginner-friendly. Unlike the XR Development with Unity course, however, this curriculum, the curriculums in these two courses target much more specific learning areas that are particularly important for beginners to know or are of specific interest above and beyond general best practices. These two programs, which again I'll break down later on in the presentation, can be taken as standalone programs, but we recommend pairing them up with the beginner-friendly 10-week course to further accelerate learning, given that that's where most people start with us. Not to be forgotten is our team training opportunities. If your company is considering investing in VR and AR technology, or is looking to have a group of folks upskill in this space together, we would love to work with you to create a customized training program designed to suit your specific needs and challenges. These bootcamp style sessions are great because they teach specifically what you need to learn to maximize the value of your innovation in the VR and AR space. To date, we've had the pleasure of working with organizations and companies like the US Navy, Walmart, VMware, and most recently BMW in this space. Great. Now that you know a little bit more about us, let's focus on what we're going to cover today. So today, we're going to talk about how to properly capture 360 assets, how to stitch 360 content together, what the end-to-end pipeline in Unity needs to be like to create an immersive environment, how to import these assets into Unity, and then above all else, I've already mentioned this a couple times, common best practices for beginners and how to avoid pitfalls. I've mentioned Unity quite a few times already today, but I do want to be sure that we're all up to speed here before moving on. So first homework for you guys, I'm going to go over to the polls tab here. So if everybody could navigate over with me, I'm just going to add the poll here. Sorry, 1 second. I'm dying to know, I always like to ask this question in a workshop. How much experience on a scale of 1 to 10 do you have in Unity? So the poll should be up. Let me know in the chat if it's not. Let's have a look here. Doesn't actually look like it's there. Interesting. Okay, well, let me know in the chat because I am curious. The poll isn't up there. Mitch, Mia, thank you for letting me know. Just throw it into the chat, guys. I am curious here. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much experience do you guys have in Unity? Luke says 5. Jason says 1. Charles 1 as well. Okay, so it appears like we've got mostly beginners in the room today. That's quite okay. You're going to be just fine with this workshop for today. So let me walk you through it. What is Unity? Well, the LTS version of Unity is a free 3D development game engine designed to create games, simulations, and experiences within the engine. I would say, and I think most people would agree, it's the easiest way to begin making apps for XR, which is just a fancy umbrella term to describe both the AR and the VR industry. This is really important. How do you actually go from idea to concept or application on your headset today? Well, just like anything, it all starts with an idea. From there, you actually need to bring your assets into Unity or create them with other programs and import them to Unity, and to begin building immersive interactions using scripts within the game engine. Once you're happy with your build, you need to leverage an SDK, which stands for a software development kit, to effectively verify that your target headset or device can host the application. Once you've pushed your build through that SDK, you can officially render and publish your app, and voila, you've got an app. So now that we understand Unity a bit better, what about 360 video content and 360 tours? So a 360 virtual tour is really the stitching together of a number of 360-degree camera assets, and it makes it appear as though it's a seamless whole, so that when a user puts on a headset or has a 360 video experience, they can control the experience and integrate and immerse themselves within it. So without further ado, today is an intro to getting a 360 video experience ready within Unity. I'd like to invite Ben up here on stage at this point to take over and to share more about how it all works. Ben, you made it. You got your video sorted out. This is awesome to see. Take it away. It's all yours. We're super excited to have you.
Great. Thanks, Carl. I'm super excited to be here. Super excited to see so many of you from all over the world listening in. I'm so passionate about 360 video, and I'm so glad to share it with you guys. And hopefully I can shortcut you through a lot of the mistakes I made along the way, so you can skip those and really start, creating excellent content in Unity and capturing really great content. We're going to split this up in two parts. So we've got Chris with me. I'm going to focus on how to actually capture the footage and get it ready for Unity. And then we'll have Chris come in later and actually show how you then take that asset, put it in Unity, and do like really magical things with it. So to begin with, what is a 360 video? Now, Carl gave a great example when he was explaining it, but I think what would be really helpful is just to see a 360 video in action. Now, I was going to ask for a poll to get an idea of who's seen a 360 video before, whether in a headset or perhaps on something like YouTube or Facebook or some other kind of thing, or perhaps on your phone. In the meantime, just put it in the questions. I'll keep an eye on there just to get an idea. I know a lot of you are new to this. Some of you are really advanced. And we'll try to cover everything in the time we've got. So I'm going to begin with very simply showing the difference between a normal video and a 360 video for those who haven't seen it, and just to make everything clear. So this is some footage provided by Blend. And if I press play, this is what you normally see when you watch a video on YouTube, on something or on TV or something like this, something like that. The beauty of something like 360 is all of a sudden we can move the screen. We are capturing absolutely everything. We can look above us, we can look below. And although this works wonderfully in something like a computer, it's so immersive when you put it in a VR headset, when you look around. To use some cliche terms, it's a little bit like teleportation, or the holodeck in a way. Egos knows exactly where this waterfall is. So yes, it is in Venezuela. I think it's Angel Falls. And so this is essentially one of the examples of 360 video. And we use a lot of similar techniques to traditional filmmaking, and then we do some really funky stuff to make it work in 360. And that's what I'm going to show you today. I'm going to show you how we do that, what you need to take into account if you're going to film in 360, how to get those files ready, and we'll continue from there. Now, I do have a lot to cover in a very small time, so I am talking a little bit fast, but I'll try to slow down just to make sure I'm clear. So that was just to give you guys an idea of what 360 is. Obviously, I can't give you what the experience is in something like a headset, like a Quest 2 or one of those other headsets. But what I can show you is what we can use 360 for. And I thought the best way for me to kind of explain some of the ideas 360 video is actually used for is by just kind of talking just a little bit about some of the projects I've used 360 for, to give you guys some ideas. So what we have here is just a list of some of my more recent projects. And here are some examples. So this project over here is kind of covered. Was done for the Children's Society. It was a project targeted for children around the ages of about, I think, 12 to 15. And it was an interactive. You had a 360 video and then they were asked questions. It was to help them deal with anxiety at school. And it was worked with, they used it side by side with a therapist, and we're still getting the research coming in, but it's actually showing to be really effective as a way of putting them through potentially stressful situations, but in a controlled environment, and learning how to cope and deal with those. So that was where we've mixed 360 video, where we recreate that experience, and then they get to choose kind of like a branch narrative, is what we call it, where you get like option A, option B, and then the story continues accordingly. Another example of us using 360 video is over here. I'm not sure how clear this is, but this was, let me just move that over there. This was a protest. It was the XR extinction protest in London. We live streamed it in 360 on Facebook. Another example is over here. Oh, sorry, I don't know if you can see my arrows. There we go, they're my cursors. Yes, so Dave said, like, choose your own adventure. That's exactly it. It's one of my favorite ways of actually using 360 video, that kind of choose your own adventure, whether it's for a narrative or a story, or we use it a lot for training as well, which is one of the bigger 360s currently being used. This is one of those examples as well. This is for the NHS here. So it was to teach empathy when dealing with people who are vulnerable. So in this example, actually it's quite an extreme example, this was to do with suicide prevention. Over here, this was another 360 video, which I can actually load up as an example because it's quite a nice one. Let's see if I've got it here. I'll load it up in a moment. And this is something, again, another 360 video we shot for, this was Road Safety Scotland, and it was targeted towards 20 to 25-year-olds to help them be aware of the hazards on the road. Now, one of the, oops, just jumped ahead in my slides. So one of the things which we did, in fact, let's just go back to that one, the road safety one. I'm just going to load it up on YouTube while we're talking. One of the effective things about that is we had over 1 million views on that. So it's just one of those ways we managed to create something very new and unique, and it was an excellent way to engage people who wouldn't usually kind of watch that kind of video. So there's loads of ways we can use 360, loads of ways that it adds this extra level of impact when it's in a VR experience, whether it's in a YouTube experience, because you are engaged, you're immersed, and there's that sense of presence. And these are kind of things which I'm going to be coming back to as well. I've got a great question about our equipment. I'm going to get onto that in a little bit. I will share YouTube links soon. I'll come back to it in a moment. I'm just struggling to multitask as I talk. So that's my kind of why 360 video. So when we shoot 360, there's a process we follow, and that process is really simple and kind of obvious. Sorry if this is appearing back to front. I don't know why it's doing that at the moment, but I will fix that in a moment. We have the pre-production, the production, and the post-production. And effectively, all this means is pre-production is where we plan out what we're going to do. We get if we're going to have actors or any talent involved, where we're going to shoot, any permissions we need, and storyboarding. Your pre-production might literally be, I'm just going to go out and shoot something today. But it's just that kind of pre-planning stage. The next step is the actual production, which is where we're actually on set and we're filming something. Whether you have actors walking around, or you've got your sound person, whoever your crew is, or if it's just you with a little camera. And then the final step is the post-production, which we talked about, which is where we kind of take that footage, we stitch it together, we put the edit in, and either get it ready to put in that clip into Unity or a standalone on a VR headset. So VR headsets can also play without building a Unity program, but that'll be like a set film. If you need any interaction, that's where we start using Unity. Cool. So I had a question about equipment. And so how do we actually shoot 360? How is it different from traditional filming? And you probably notice in the back, this is one example of a 360 camera. And what makes it different to a normal camera is that this particular one, for example, has 6 lenses. I'll just turn that around. So each camera has a very wide angle and it's capturing a wide amount of the picture. And there's going to be a little bit of overlap on each picture. So just go. And because it goes all the way around, it means we capture everything around. It also captures everything above and everything below. So this is one of the more professional style cameras, but there are other cameras as well, like the Insta1X, or this is the Candow 8K. And this is a 2-lens camera, which has, again, a really wide angle lens, and it captures completely 360. So it captures everything in view, in front of it, and behind it. And these are much easier to use than something like this, because it's one click, and it generally works surprisingly well. But if I go here, I've got a big selection of other cameras as well. When I first started, there never used to be so many cameras. When I first started 360, we would use 6 GoPros, and we would 3D print a case, and it would press record on each one. And it was a really complicated, really accident-prone, and just unreliable way of filming. So now we have a lot of different versions of 360 cameras. Choosing the right kind of camera for the job can be a bit of a minefield. But if you're just starting out and you want to have a go at doing 360, I would recommend one of the 2 lenses. And also, of course, if you want to shoot as well, you have the option to shoot underwater. You get all these crazy rigs for underwater rigs. And sometimes you can also build your own custom rig as well. But that's more advanced. I just wanted to know that those are some of the things that people do. I'm getting asked recommendations for camera brand names, and I will give those later. So if I do go over something, just put them in the questions and we'll make sure we'll cover it later, or we'll send that information out to you guys. So a few things about when you're actually shooting. And when you want to film something, there's effectively two very distinct styles of shooting 360. One is what we call the static shot, and the other is the dynamic. Static, meaning the camera doesn't move, and dynamic, effectively, we're going to move the camera. And even within static, we have 2 types of shots. We have what we call the floating head, which is where you have the camera on a tripod and you look around and everything's around you. And then we have the point of view shot, which is where you might embody the person. And there are 2 ways to go about that. There are two ways to approach it. One way is with point of view, you can either use a CGI body, or there are some very clever camera techniques you can use to incorporate that body in it. And that has both its pros and its cons. Then for the dynamic shot, we want to move the camera. It gets a little bit more complicated, but we get to use some fun toys to make that happen. So I'll give you some examples for some kind of dynamic shots. We could Sometimes you can just hold it and just move it is one of the ways to do a dynamic shot. Another way is to use an RC dolly, which is like a rover. I think I might have some pictures up here. Drone is one of the more obvious ones. So here's an example of us putting one of the cameras on a drone. Here is a picture of us putting it on a rover. You might want to put it on a cable cam or a slider. These are all very interesting ways to get the camera moving. I see there's some chat, and there's lots of chats where people are talking about what's a good camera, what's not, is 8K too much? You know, really interesting questions. I will be covering them, and it'll all make sense, but I'm enjoying the conversation, and it's interesting being here and seeing what you guys are talking about, and I can't wait to get involved in those questions, so please keep them coming. They're absolutely fantastic questions coming through at the moment. So that's a little bit about different ways we can move the camera, do things with it. So the next thing would be, let me just have a look at my notes because I'm talking lots. We've kind of talked about what camera to use, kind of like little differences between them, press and record. We're getting so many questions about resolution, and I think that's actually probably a really interesting question to bring up now. Generally in 360, we want to get the best resolution we can, because when we're going to watch it on a headset, it's going to stretch the image big and wide. So currently, from a professional point of view, if it's going to be really high quality footage, we try to shoot at 8K, which is 8,000 pixels wide, which sounds like a really high resolution because very few people have 8K TVs. But because we're stretching that image and you're going to see it all the way around, and your screen itself might only show 720, 8K is kind of okay. It's not even perfect. We do want higher resolutions, but the challenge is that headsets can't support them or struggle to support them, and computers struggle to support them. We've just had the Quest 2 come out. There are a few other headsets which can support 8K video, but we try to record at the highest resolution we can. You'll find that also that most cameras can't record at a very high frame rate. So we want to at least 30 frames per second. And then there's some other technical things as well, which go into that when we talk about compression and bitrate and things like that. I'm going to not talk about that now, but I just want you guys to be aware of that. And you get different quality of your image in your camera depending on the lens and the way it's recorded. So lots of different cameras to choose from, but they all pretty much do the same thing. There is one difference which you can do on a camera like this, which you can't do on a camera like this. And they've got long words. One is this can only shoot in something called monoscopic, and this can shoot in stereoscopic. And what I mean by that is 2D, 3D. So you can actually get more of a sense of depth with a camera like this. But that also has implications later down with the post-production. So I think what I'm going to do, just to kind of jump ahead, I'm just going to give you guys some like key tips for when you're shooting 360. These are things which is going to make your life so much easier. A lot of people might have experienced 360 and think it's awful because it was shot really badly. And there are certain things you can do just to really help you out there. So the first thing you should do is one of the things which gives people that kind of vertigo and that kind of sick feeling when in a headset is if the image is shaky or the horizon isn't level. It's almost like being seasick because your screen, you might be wobbling the camera left and right, you might be walking with it. That kind of movement and that kind of feeling can make you feel really uncomfortable. So it's really important. Now for a static shot, that's obviously quite simple, but for a moving shot, it's really important to try to keep it as steady as possible. There are ways to stabilize it in post, but if you can keep it stable or maybe use a gimbal or something like that, it's going to make your footage so much better. Really, really important, keeping that horizon level. The next tip would be, remember, you're shooting for VR. So if we've got a scene in 360 and you put your tripod all the way up there, but your actors are down over here, down low, when people are in VR, they're going to have to look down to see the action. So when you're shooting, always think what's going on in the scene. Where is my viewer? Now, when I film, and I know the BBC does this as well, they give their camera a name. So they might call it like, this is Alfred. And so where is Alfred in this conversation? Where is he standing? And we usually, I mean, people have different rules, but I generally try to go for about eye level for where I want the camera. So if I know my audience is going to be children, the eye level will be lower. If I know my audience is going to be adults, it'll be higher, and whether they're going to be standing or sitting. So these are just some things to consider in regards to your camera placement, where you want it. It's effectively another person in the room. So are they part of the conversation or are they observing the conversation? I just had a question pop up about if I thought about drawing a smiley on it. This isn't actually my production camera. My production camera is in my studio and we have a mohawk on it. So just to make it a little bit more fun when we're out and about shooting. So things to think about is camera placement. The other thing to think about as well, and this will make more sense when we jump a little bit into post-production, is stitch lines. So we've talked about how we have these wide angles capturing each part of the image, whether it's on a 6 camera or on something on a 2-lens camera. And they capture 360, but they do need to join the gaps in between the gaps. And although we've got tools to help blend that in, if it's too close to the camera, it causes a lot of problems. And if people are moving around, it can create challenges. So one of the art of 360 filming, and more specifically post-production, is what we call stitching. And that is joining those dots as seamlessly as possible. There's a lot of stuff you can do while you're shooting to make your life so much easier. Just try to keep your main action in the front of the lens. Try not to have people standing where the lens actually isn't shooting. You'll get a much cleaner picture and you're not going to get these strange artifacts as people cross. And sometimes you can see that in 360 where all of a sudden their faces slightly disappear. That's because they're too close to the camera and they're too close to the point over here rather than here. So if you can control the situation, make sure the action is pointing. Now, the thing to also remember, because it's 360 camera, there is no forwards. You can always rotate it afterwards. So if you're shooting here, but your main action is happening over there, you can rotate the camera so your most interesting point will always be in front of you, or whichever direction you want them to be in. Which is interesting for direction because you get to choose where you want people to look. They have free choice, they can look around, but you get to direct where they want. And actually, I will talk about this just a little bit. You can use the 3 techniques which I like to use to kind of direct people where to look at. I use sound. So sometimes we use ambisonic sounds. So we've got 3D sound. So if there's action going there, you get the sound going there and the person will look and then the action can continue. We can use light, so the way the light hits, and we can use people's movements. If they start here, they walk across there, naturally your eye line will follow where they're going. All right. I haven't started timing myself, so I don't know how long I've got. So I want to make sure I cover everything. So I'm going to jump ahead a little bit to make sure I cover all the important stuff. Okay. So great question. Does stitching include removing the camera stand as well? Because if you look down, you will see the stand. Really good point. And I'm going to cover that now. I'm just going to quickly try changing this because it looks like everything's back to front. I'm not quite sure why it's doing that. So I'm just going to see if I can do a quick fix for that. It's not back to front. Okay, it's just me then. Okay, great. It looks good for you guys. I'm reading it back to front, but that's fine. Okay, so going back to the question about tripods. So yes, so this is now we're moving to post-production. And we've effectively, I'm jumping a little bit ahead. We've shot what we wanted. If you're using a camera like this, the files will be saved onto an SD card. And then you need to then do the stitching process. If you've got this or the other camera I often use is something called a Insta-X. There's a few similar variations of it. They record to an SD card or a micro SD card, and sometimes you can stitch on your phone automatically, or they've got a little bit of software so you can stitch automatically. Stitching automatically is really easy, and I recommend it if you're just starting out. But once you start having like these funny stitch lines or using like a 6-lens camera, it becomes trickier and there's a different set of software. And I'm just going to give you guys a touch of what that looks like, just show what it's like. This is the Insta Pro. I'm normally using something like the Insta Pro 2, and that had 7 memory cards. So each lens has a memory card, I have to take it out. I then put it into a big memory card reader, and then, oh, stop screen sharing, sorry. I then put it in a memory card reader. So that's 7 memory cards for one of the bigger cameras, just for perhaps 1 minute's footage, which is quite a lot of data to wrangle together. And the file sizes on the more professional cameras, if you're shooting 8K, can get quite large. Just something to be aware of. It's a lot more manageable with these smaller cameras, but they're still quite big sizes. Like you put a 64 gig memory card in one of the smaller cameras, and that might last you an hour because you're still shooting around 5-6K on them. So I just want you guys to just kind of be aware of file sizes. Projects can quickly expand. Okay, so what are we going to do? So then we've captured it, we've ingested the footage. So the next step is stitching. I mentioned some cameras come with automatic software. Others, the software is kind of varied between them, and the results are sometimes mixed. So I then use, and most professionals use a program called Mystico Vr. I can give you guys a preview of this bit of software, and it'll kind of help me explain stitch lines as well. So I've loaded up some footage from something I shot a couple of years ago. Let's just share my screen. Now I realize whenever you're looking at like new interfaces, there's lots of buttons, and I don't want you to focus too much on what everything is here. It's just to show you, here we have our 6 lenses. I've loaded up the 6 lenses from something I shot with actually this camera not so long ago. And what we'll usually do is we need to kind of like merge them all together. So the nice thing about Mystico Vr is it has a template we can use for something like the Insta Pro or the Insta Pro 2. So usually we click load preset, and because I know which one, it's got so many 360 camera presets. I believe I think this one is, yeah, it'll be this. And it'll do its clever thing, and it'll give me a very rough stitch. Now, there's something which I want you guys to notice. I'm just going to load something up. Epic pen. This is my 360 video, and what it's done is it has joined all those 6 lenses together. Now, when you start looking closely, you'll notice some problems. I've just had a question. Will Premiere Pro work with this? No. So this is a step before Premiere Pro. We will be using Premiere Pro next. So stitching it together, the way that Premiere Pro will see it to begin with would be 6 separate videos. So this is what Mystico does. It takes these 6 lenses. In fact, I'm going to point something out. If you see this woman here, you can see her here. You can see the overlap. Now, if you follow the cursor, you can see her appear here. And so this is her going around the camera. Then she goes here, and now she's in this lens over here. Whereas once we stitched it together, you'll see actually it feels a lot more seamless. We've joined that up, and it appears as if she's just walking through. Something else to notice about this video as well is it kind of looks a little bit warped. And the reason is this is what we call an equirectangular image. What that means is kind of like how when we look at a map and we see, the whole world in that, we know that the world isn't square, it's a globe. So this kind of format we call equirectangular. And what that means is, I'm just going to open my pen. Over here, that's what you see when you look above. Over here is what you see when you look at the ground. Over here is what's kind of to the left of the camera when I look this way. And over here is what's to the right. So what do I mean by that? Let me show you. Oh, let me stop this pen. So this is what's in front, this is to your left, this is to your right, this is above, and this is below. So we can see, so you see here, this is what's in front, this is the ceiling above, this is what's below. You can see we've got the tripod here. In post-production, we remove that. I'll show you guys some tricks. And then this is what's behind. But when we're editing, we're usually looking at the image like this. It means if someone crosses over from here, they'll start to reappear over here. Mystico is a bit of expensive software. I know someone's pointed it out. It's why it's kind of one of those professional grade software. So if you don't want to like delve into that at that stage, there's some other solutions, but these things use the built-in stitcher. But I wanted you guys to kind of like have that information. That is how it works. That's what we use. And I'll try and show you guys some, oh, let me stop screen sharing. There we go. Yeah, I'll show you guys some kind of free software-ish stuff to help you wherever I can. So then we export that image and we try to export it out at the highest quality we can. We've captured it in the highest quality. We've exported it at the highest quality we can. And then we go into, I like using Premiere Pro. There are some other video softwares you can use, but Premiere Pro is really good for 360. It's got a lot of native support without having to install plugins and play around. And it's generally, out of all the software, it's really well supported. There's lots of tutorials on YouTube on how to use it. So I'm just going to load up and I'm going to show you guys how to do some cool stuff in Premiere Pro with these 360 videos. All right. So I'm just going to, so I've actually loaded some up, but I'm just going to show you guys how to load up some footage in there. So here's some more footage which has been provided to me from Blend, and I'm just going to load up some more. Sometimes it's just as simple in Premiere Pro as, oops, let me just find my folder. Sorry, guys. Okay. So Blend have been kind enough to provide me with some 360 video to share with you guys, and you guys will get access to these videos too, so you can have a go at it. So this is pre-stitched. That's the other thing. If going out and filming stuff on a 360 camera isn't for you guys, you want to get programming and you want to be doing the editing, something like Blend is really good. They have, they have stock 360 footage. You can find what you want. They've got shots from all over the world, incredible shots. You might find something for your project there. They're going to be providing some 360 footage for you to practice on and to test out some of the things we're going to be showing. So there's that as well. But just so you guys know, let me grab some 360 footage. Let's take, here we go. Okay, cool. So what have I got here? So here I've got a shot of the Eiffel Tower. In fact, what I wanted to show you guys, so I kind of skipped through that. I'll do it with this one here. Literally, I just dragged and dropped it into this area here, which we call the timeline. I've actually got 4 clips loaded up here, which we can kind of skip through. I've got a lot going on my computer at the moment. You will probably need quite a powerful computer to work with 360 video. If you're working with VR, you probably already have quite a powerful computer. The footage files can turn quite, as we said, they're quite large. They can be up to 8K. You can create something called proxies, so you actually end up working on a lower file, and that uses a lot less memory, and then you can use it on a much smaller computer. So right now I'm using Premiere Pro, and this is a video editing software which supports 360. There's just 1 or 2 things you need to do to get it ready for 360. The first thing is over here. If you go into Sequence, and you click Sequence Settings, just make sure you've got your projection here set to equirectangular and your layout to monoscopic. You know you're working with monoscopic video when your resolution is 2:1. What do I mean by that? I mean that the resolution's width is twice that to its height. So there's some common for like resolution sizes, which we work in when working with 360, but as long as it's twice as wide as it is high, you're dealing with monoscopic. If you're dealing with stereoscopic footage, it's then 1 by 1. And the way it looks is, oh, sorry, let me get out this picture. It looks like 2 images laid on top of each other, because the top image is for your left eye, the bottom image is for your right eye, and it feeds them both in, and it gives that 3D effect when you're looking at 360. So if we're now working, let's jump back here. So you probably now recognize this. I mean, this is meant to be the Eiffel Tower, but we have this as the equirectangular image. So here's the left, here's the front, here's the right. You know, here are all 4 sides of, well, here's the front, here's the left, right, and behind. And you can see the behind bit, it starts over here and it continues over here. Another thing to get Premiere Pro ready is just to right mouse click. In fact, it's another way. So over here, I have this toggle VR display button. You might not have that by default. If you press the plus button over there, you can click this and then you can kind of drag it in and then you'll have it. And that will then allow us to see this as a 360 image or as a 360 video for playback. If you have a VR headset, even better, you can connect your VR headset into your computer. You can click right mouse click and you can select Adobe Immersive Environment, and you can actually start playing back your edits and whatever you're doing in the VR headset live, which is pretty funky. So Cindy, I know you're looking for how to pronounce the monoscopic and stereoscopic. I will come back to it and I'll write it down for you. So one is mono, the other is stereo. And a quick question for Mike, can you do that on the Mac with the Quest 1 2? I don't know for Mac. There is stuff you can do. I primarily work on a PC when I work in VR. So I'm not sure the connection. I know you can do things with the Mac, with the Quest, but I just don't know how well integrated it is. So, okay, so we've got 360 footage. What can we do with it while we're in Premiere other than editing? So certain things which are always helpful would be perhaps to trim the video so you actually only choose the bit you want, because we've said that videos are very big file sizes. You're probably only going to need a certain amount. So Premiere Pro, it's quite easy. You know, this isn't a full tutorial on, you know, how to use Premiere Pro, but it's just to show you the key bits of information. You can trim the bit you want, so the file size isn't huge, and when you're playing your thing in Unity, you only have the bits you need. Then, in fact, I'm going to remove this, despite how beautiful it is. I'm just going to take one scene. In fact, that's a nice scene. And actually, this is actually a really good point with camera angle. I chose this one because I thought it was kind of cute. This was shot on a 2-lens camera. And what they've done is they put the camera quite low. So it gives you a really kind of intimate angle with I don't know if that's a penguin or a puffin, I guess. A puffin, perhaps. And in a VR headset, it's going to look huge in front of you. So you're actually kind of playing a bit with size, which is kind of fun. But perhaps, you know, we wanted to do something with this. Like we wanted to, let's say, put a logo in there, kind of like how Blend has put a logo in there, or perhaps we want to remove something, or perhaps we want to add something or composite something on top. So thank you for pointing out that it's a penguin. I feel like an idiot, but it's a baby penguin, so I wasn't sure. Thanks, Theo. Thea. Okay, so what we're going to do, I'm just going to find a picture I can chuck in there and just show you one of the most powerful tools which we use in 360 all the time. And people who don't know it, it's such a headache. But once you know this trick, it just makes life so much easier. I'm just going to load up some pictures. Let's see. All right. So I'm just going to share my screen. So I'm just going to take a picture. I'm just going to load it above. So we now have a picture over here. We see that. So I've got a picture of VR headset. Now, let's say I wanted that VR headset kind of down over on this side here. Normally, what you do in normal software is, well, you would just kind of drag it along and you'd move it somewhere like that and maybe pop it there. The problem is, in 360, this does not work, and it creates this distortion around it. Okay, and that's because we talked about it being equirectangular. I've just noticed something else. The resolution here is not quite right. You see, it isn't reaching the edges. So it's because I imported different footage at different resolutions. So there's a quick fix for that. I'll just quickly do that. Just to stretch it out to the edges. I just click on this, right mouse click, scale to frame size. So it's just getting rid of the black bits. So we don't have that black thing. So you can see it's not quite right. So here is the tool, and we use it for so many things. And it's one of the really nice built-in tools in Premiere Pro. And basically, we go to immersive tools or immersive video. So there's a section here called effects. And it'll be set up different depending how you set up your computer. But over here, it will say effects. And it shows us all these VR tools which are specific to VR, because if you start changing things around using the other tools, it starts to break the VR information, but the immersive tools are built for VR support. You can't see that corner. Sorry, guys, I realize why. That should, oops. Let me just hide my desktop. Okay. There we go. Hopefully that's clear. Oh, it's decided to zoom up. There we go. So it's the effects window over here. And I've typed in immersive, and that kind of shows me all the immersive tools. And there's this wonderful tool here called plane to sphere. And what that does is convert it. If I just drag and drop it on, in fact, before I do that, this is also where people make a mistake. We need to reset that. Let me just bring in a new image. One moment. Changed it. So we drop the image in. I'm just going to stick it there. So we have the image over here. I'm now going to add this effect, plane to sphere. Going to drag it onto the image, which I had here. I'll just make this a little bit bigger. So that's my image. And now what it has done is given me this thing here called, this where my effects control are. And down here we have plane to sphere. And it allows me to change its size. And you'll see as I grow it, it adds that distortion if I'm going to grow it or shrink it. You see how it's warping? But in 360, or let's say I was to project it down on the ground over there, it looks weird. I get that. But for 360, let me just put it a bit over there, for example, maybe a little bit lower. Oops, getting all kinds of things going on. Now, if I was to look at it in 360, it hasn't got that same kind of curved distortion effect, which it would have otherwise. So it's a really useful tool. It's good if you're plating or putting objects in, or you can put videos in or 3D objects. We call that compositing. We use a similar tool for lots of different ways and making sure that it works within that whole 360 sphere. Now, I'm just going to keep an eye on my time, because I know I've been talking lots and there's lots I want to cover. But I know Chris has a lot to cover too. I don't know if I could get a time check from the organizers just to see if I'm going over. Okay, actually, this is a really good question. What should we export the video to? Okay, I'm going to jump straight to exporting for now. There was another bit I wanted to talk about, which was plating, which is removing the tripod, or removing perhaps you have a light, or you're in the scene and you want to remove yourself. That's also quite important, and we do that with masking and clone brushing and other tools. But what do you export it at? How do you get it in? Okay, I'm going to give you, there's two things we can do. First of all, within Premiere Pro, we can export. So we can go, let me just select the video. We would go File, I'm going to keep this quick, go to Export Media, and we'll have a new window appear. And generally, it's best for working in H.264, when we're working with footage for 360. So even though certain headsets, certain computers can work in H.265, we're talking about Unity here. And for most compatibility, we want it to be H.264. So that's an MP4 file, and it's H.264. There is that over there. I'm going to talk about specifically for okay, thanks, Dayan. I'm going to quickly wrap up a little bit, and I might in Q&A then give you guys a bit more information about stuff. So H.264 is a really good format. It's a format we want to use. We don't leave the preset. We're going to have to create our own preset. Now, this is my built-in one for the Oculus Quest, because if you're just playing on that, you can get a higher resolution than you can get with Unity, unless you do lots of trickery. So for now, we're going to create a custom one. So to create a custom one, something which we know is going to work nice on Unity, I would make sure that the resolution is 4096 by 2048. So you'll notice that the height is half the width. We were talking about that 2:1 resolution. And this is a really good resolution because it's compatible. So I know we shot in 8K, but for Unity, for compatibility and people using different machines, and of course it depends what your output is. Generally speaking, this is quite a safe resolution. It might not be at the highest quality, but it'll be good enough for now. And the other thing we'll be looking, if your computer's got it, you get to use hardware encoding if you've got a good graphics card. If you go any higher than 4K, it all has to be done software encoding. And then I usually put CBR as my bitrate encoding. And Unity, it changes with each version, but usually somewhere between 30 to 40 megabits will work smoothly in Unity. One of the challenges you'll always have is that these video files can be large, and this directly affects how big the file size is. The higher the number, the better the quality, but the bigger the file size. So, and you start to lose compatibility, and it depends what you've recorded at. So let's go for 35, that should work fine. This 2-minute clip, in fact, I'm just going to take, yeah, this is a 2-minute clip at 35 CBR. We're looking at about 700 meg, which is quite a big file. And then it's just as simple. I mean, I like to tick maximum quality because why wouldn't you want maximum quality? And if you're changing the size, if you're changing the resolution, so you start with 8K and you went down to 4K, I would tick render at maximum depth, and then I'll export. And because I'm using hardware encoding, it's actually, and I've got a fast computer, it's taking me 22 seconds to export that, which isn't bad at all. Now, I'm going to move slowly on to Chris, because I've only got a couple of minutes left. If you don't have Premiere Pro, so Premiere Pro and Mystico Vr, there are free trials available. Premiere Pro is a lot cheaper than Mystico. Mystico's, you can pay monthly subscriptions. You can only use it when you want it, if you need to use it, rather than paying the annual fee, which is extremely high. But there is, I believe, a free trial with it. If you want to let's say, for example, you've got the file, but you just want to get it ready for Unity, and you don't want to use Premiere Pro. What you can do instead, and I'll see if we've got time in the Q&A, is you can use a free open source software called Ffmpeg. It's command line, but I'll give you guys in the pack some codes you can put, and you can put whatever video you want into that, and it'll output it at a format for Unity, which will work. And there's loads of really cool things you can do with it, but I'll give you guys that code because it's, if you're not familiar with it, it looks like gobbledygook, but I'll show you guys how to do that. That's completely free. It's super powerful, really great bit of software. And that would also be helpful if you find other 360 footage, which perhaps you didn't film, but you want to use, and you've got access to it, or if you've used Blend Market. And that way you can just run it through Ffmpeg, run this code, and it's going to work really nicely. That's completely free. It's open source. You can do lots of really cool stuff with it. Cool. Hopefully that have given you guys a big overview. I will be giving, I'll pick up on anything in the Q&As later if you guys want. I'm now going to hand over to Chris, who's going to show you guys how to do some really cool stuff in Unity with 360 video.
Hello viewers, I'm Chris. So I'm going to show you a little bit in Unity. Just a little bit about me quickly. I am also one of the instructors at UCL in Immersive Media, and I also teach at Portsmouth on the computer games course. I'm definitely more on the game side of things. In fact, when it comes to 360 video, I'm somewhat of a novice, but I use 3D VR projects for things like theatre and musical performance and stuff like that. So 360 video is kind of a new area for me since coming to UCL. So hopefully the stuff that I'm going to show you today is sort of very approachable for the layperson. So what we're going to do in Unity is we've got 6 360 videos, and we are going to stitch those together in Unity to make a 360 sizzle reel with some nice scene transitions as well. And we're going to do that using only one script and a couple of animations. So if you're not very familiar with Unity, or you're not very adept at C# coding, don't worry, we're going to explain everything, and it's going to be really, really easy to follow. So let's jump right in. So the first thing that we need to know is how we're going to show our 360 video in Unity. So what's the theory behind it? And we've already talked about equal rectangular projection. Ben talks about that and how we shoot 360 video. I'm not a photo technician or a video person at all. But essentially, as Ben explains, it's taking a 360 image and sort of flattening that out. Now, we use that information in Unity when we import our videos in, but what we actually want to do in Unity, because we're working in a 3D real-time environment, is we actually want to use a technique called 6-map or Skybox. So the Skybox, as you can see, is kind of similar where Ben was pointing out where certain perspectives may be on the equirectangular projection. It's kind of similar on the cube map. So we have sort of different segments of the cube laid out, and that shows where we would look in the 3D space. And Unity actually processes that information and presents it sort of as like a sphere that we look into. It's kind of hard to get your head around, no pun intended, but that's how we sort of display the 360 video in Unity. And why do we do it that way? Because we're going to be projecting this onto a mesh, we want to use less polygons on the texture, which makes it more computationally efficient because we might have lots of other stuff going on in Unity under the hood. If you're exporting your 360 video into Unity, you might have other scenes in between that are quite CPU or GPU intensive. So we want to always be performant when we're using 3D engines. It also means that we're sort of free from distortions when we're moving the camera around in Unity quite quickly, and it's viewport independent as well. So there are lots of pluses to us using cube mapping over equirectangular projection. So I've got my Unity project here, and I know we're running a little short for time. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put together sort of one 360 video scene, and I've got several already loaded, so we can go through the process in its entirety. But we need essentially 3 components to make a 360 video in Unity. We need obviously our 360 film and a video player component to play that film. We need a render texture, which is going to broadcast our video. And that video is going to be broadcasted onto a Skybox material, which is what we were talking earlier about, sort of a texture that goes over our cube map. So how would we go about doing this? Well, I've started a very simple, just 3D standard Unity project. So if you have Unity installed on the machine at the moment, you can just choose the 3D template and start from there. The other thing that I've done as well for this particular demonstration is I've gone to the package manager, and I've loaded in Unity's XR plugin management, and you can get that just straight through the package manager. It's one of Unity's internal XR plugins. You can use any plugin you like. You can use SteamVR, you could use Oculus, you can use OpenVR. There are some third-party ones, such as VRTK, which I think is depreciated now. But this particular tutorial is just going to focus on using Unity's XR plugin. So the other thing that we need to do is we also just need to double check that in our build settings, and we go to player settings, that we have XR plugin enabled. I'm using an Oculus headset for this, so I've ticked Oculus, but you can use a Windows MR headset. You could use all sorts of things. You could use a Vive, you could use an Index, what have you. So I've selected Oculus here. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to create a new scene. Now, for those of you that are unfamiliar with Unity, a scene is where we contain all of our asset information for one particular block of the experience. And just to answer your question about what Unity version I'm using here, I think I'm using the latest LTS version, which is, I think it's 2019.4 point something. But if you are using Unity now, you'll have to download the Unity Hub, and the Unity Hub will direct you to the latest long-term service version. I think there's probably, I think probably 2020's come out of alpha now, so you can use that. But there won't really be much different. There's not really been a huge amount of change in Unity over the last 6 months. So we're going to create a new scene here, and I also want the console window as well. Where's my console window gone? Just going to revert factory settings here. There we go. Well, a couple of errors here, which we're just going to clear. We don't need to worry about those. So the scene is going to handle all of our asset information here. Now, in the case of this, this is going to be the stage almost for our 360 video. If you're working on games, you might refer to this as like a level or a map or something like that. But in this particular instance, this is just the stage for our 360 video. Now, there are loads of different ways you could do this if you wanted to transition between videos. For example, for those of you that know how to write shaders, you could use shader language, and you could write some kind of funky fade shader that will change the Skybox projection after a certain amount of time, or in an input press or something like that. We're, given the sort of the nature of the experience we've got in the room today, we're just going to focus on doing it very, very simply using Unity's API and its scene management tools. So each video is encapsulated nicely into a scene. So we've got our scene here, and it is always good practice for us to name our scene something sensible. And this one's in particular is going to contain a waterfall scene. So I'm going to save this into my scenes folder under waterfall. And you'll notice down here in my asset folder, I keep everything sort of nice and tidy here. When you're working in Unity, your project can sort of get quite overwhelming after time. You can be importing packages off the asset store that contain thousands of meshes and textures and scripts and all sorts of things, and it starts to sort of go awry. So getting sort of a clean, hygienic workspace in Unity first off is always really, really key. So here I've got one for my 360 videos, some for my animations, my materials, my prefabs, my scenes, my scripts, my textures, and any sort of XR information in here as well. So we'll go through each of these folders in a minute, but for now we want our 360 video, which is currently sitting in my downloads folder because I'm really organized like that. And the one that I want is the view of Angel Falls, Venezuela. So I'm literally just going to click and drag this into the 360 videos folder, and Unity will have a bit of a moment and it will handle the import for me. This one's quite large. I think this one's around about a gigabyte, but my computer's fairly quick, so we shouldn't be waiting too long. And just like that, we have our imported MP4 video here. So we can just double check that this one is the waterfall scene, and we can hit play here, and we can see sort of there's a preview down here, which is showing us our video running. Great. And we can already kind of tell that it's using sort of the rectangular projection and not the cube map, but that's what we're going to turn it into now. So the next thing that we're going to do is we are going to select our main camera in our scene hierarchy here. So our hierarchy contains everything that's currently in our scene. And this is kind of like our workspace. Our inspector gives us details about everything that's in our hierarchy. So if I select the direction of light, for example, it gives us all sort of parameters that we can change about the light, and the same with the camera. But I'm actually going to do away with the light. We don't need the light because we're not going to be working in 3D today. And this kind of comes back to a question someone was asking earlier. When you're importing 360 video into Unity, can you use 3D as well? Yes, you can. But because we're projecting it to the Skybox, and you can see this horizon all around you here, this is what our 360 video is going to occupy. And what happens is wherever you move the camera, that horizon doesn't change. So the perception of depth with 3D objects in a 360 video doesn't really work. It actually looks kind of weird. Also, there's no lighting. So we can't set up things like reflection probes or anything like that. So the 3D objects will look kind of weird, sort of from a lighting perspective as well. So one of the things that you probably want to do when you're planning an immersive project and you're going to import a 360 video into Unity is you probably want to think about what is it that you want to do in 3D and what is it that you want to do in 360. And a lot of my students do things, they'll do a 3D experience bookended maybe by a couple of 360 videos or something like that. So you kind of want to plan your project on that kind of level. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this camera here and I'm just going to right click, and I've got an XR window here. So I can convert this main camera to what we call an XR rig. And it's just a fancy name for a camera that's set up to use a VR headset. My Oculus is currently connected to the PC at the moment, so it's going to target that. Okay, so we've got our XR rig, and that's our camera ready to go. The next thing that we are going to do is I'm going to create what's called an empty game object. And everything in Unity is called a game object. A game object is just an entity. Specifically, Unity is what we would refer to as an entity component-based system. That's largely how it works. In computer programming, when we think of object-oriented programming, we're thinking of everything as an object. And from those objects, we can sort of delineate down further into more specific objects. So take the camera, for example. We've got an object entity called camera, and from that we can further delineate down and specify that we want an XR rig. And that's why Unity is sort of really, really approachable in terms of sort of designing 3D experiences, is that it uses this entity component-based system. So we've got an entity here, or a game object, and I'm going to call this video player. And what I can do now is I can add a video player component, and I've modified this object already. So I've given it a name, which is just a reference, but it's now a type of video player. And this is one of the three main components that we need to get 360 working in Unity. Apologies if you're asking questions at the moment. I'm just conscious of time, so hopefully I can sort of pick those up in the Q&A. If not, I'm going to send out all these. I think the guys are going to send out all these resources at the end of this, and also there's my email as well if you want to catch up with me or ask me any questions about Unity 3D. So the next thing that we need to do is we are going to create what's called a render texture. So this is the bit that's going to broadcast our 360 video into our video player. And I am going to create, just right click, go to create, and then render texture. And every time you create something new, sorry, can you clarify, do you mean we can't use the Skybox 360 video production or another Skybox to light 3D items in the scene? Not in my experience, no. This method takes over the Skybox completely. So it just kind of looks a bit bizarre. I can do this and put a cube. I can put a cube in the scene to show you it working, but you'll see it looks really awkward. So I'm going to give this render texture a name, and I'm going to append it with RT here, just so it's called, just so I know it's the render texture. And then the only parameters that I need to change up here is the size. And when Ben was talking about resolution earlier, this is where we specify the resolution of our video, because this is the bit that's going to broadcast to the Skybox. In this case specifically, I'm going to choose a 4K resolution. So I'm going to choose 3080 by 2160 here. And the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my materials folder, and this is where I'm going to create the Skybox. Okay, so I'm going to choose material here, and I'm going to call that waterfall. And then the shader mode, I'm going to choose the Skybox shader, and specifically I want the panoramic shader. And the texture is going to be my waterfall texture here. And then in my video player, and now you'll see here I've got a spot for my video clip, which is going to be this waterfall here. You can change some of these parameters here. I'm going to switch off loop because my script, as you'll see in a minute, this actually, we don't want to use the loop function because we want to transition between 360 videos. We do want to play on awake, so we want the video to start rolling as soon as the scene loads. We wait for first frame is kind of optional. That just ensures that the video is buffered correctly. And again, that's kind of not important for us because we're going to use a fade to transition in. And I'll tell you why we're going to do that in a minute. And then skip on drop. This is kind of a bit like vertical sync. So if it misses a couple of frames, it'll keep running smoothly. So I've got the video clip in there. I just need to select the render texture, which is the waterfall here. And then the next step is to go to window here and rendering, and then our lighting settings. And where it's a Skybox material here, we're very simply going to put in our new waterfall Skybox here. And there's more work that we want to do here, but we can save this now and we can test that this is running. And there we go. Sorry, it's probably quite hard to sort of make out, you know, because I've got the headset on. But there you go. You can see sort of our 360 video here is now working. So let's sort of improve this and make this a bit more sophisticated. The first thing that I'm going to do, and text in Unity's interface is hard to read. Yeah, I'm sorry, but I can also provide sort of some great sort of step-by-step resources for this as well if you're having sort of difficulty reading the specific steps. So hopefully the script bit will be a bit larger so you can see what I've done. So on the video player, I'm going to add a new component. And I've already created the script called Scene Transition. Here is where you can sort of create a new script if you want, but I've already created the script, which we're going to dive into right now. And this is so I wasn't sort of taking up loads of time doing live coding and making mistakes and fumbling my way through it. I thought it would just be easier to show you the script and its whole. And also, I don't know sort of how far to go into C# during this sort of quick rundown of Unity. I think that would probably take a bit too much time. So again, you know, this script will be included in the materials, I think, and also you can sort of get in touch if you want some extra support with C# or want directions or some resources on C#. So up here, we've got some variables, some data that we're going to use to manipulate this script. And the great thing about Unity is that all of our C# scripts are also seen as objects or entities. So we can attach the script behavior to whatever we want. For those of you that have maybe worked in something like Unreal or C++, you'll know that it's sort of a lot more difficult to do that with inheritance. C# sort of handles a lot of the legwork in that sense. So I've got some variables up here which are just referenced. And the ones that say public, these are the ones that are visible in the inspector in Unity's editor. And when they say private, we won't see those because we don't need to. The script will handle the assignment of these values here. So I've got a string, which is basically a sentence or a series of characters. And this is a reference to the scene name. So this is the scene that I'm going to want to transition to. I've got a game object called fade out, and this is the bit that handles my fade transition. And the reason we're going to use a fade transition is that the headset, the HMD, any HMD really, doesn't really deal with Unity's scene management very well. You're likely to experience sort of massive amounts of dip frames, and that can make your users a little bit poorly. So what we're going to do is we're going to do an old school game programming trick to mask that by putting in a very simple scene fade here. I've got a reference to the video player component, which we have already got on this object, and also a reference to the animator. And if we've got time, I'll go into more detail into Unity's animation tools. And that bit is the bit that handles the fade. So we've got 3 functions here. We've got awake, and this is one of Unity's kind of internal functions. So what awake does, awake starts just as the scene's loading. So if there's any information or any functionality that we need to do straight away, we would do that in awake or the start method. Generally, you'll probably use start more often, but in this case, we want to use awake because the video has to buffer. So we're going to use Unity to find a game object called transition, which we're going to set up in a minute. So as soon as the scene loads, it's going to look for our animator component. It's going to look for our video player. And then also what is going to happen now is when the loop point of the video is reached, so when the video is finished, we're going to call a new function called onMovieFinished. So as soon as the video is finished, we're going to call this onMovieFinished function. And I've just got this little debug.log statement down here. This was just when I was prototyping this, just to make sure that it was working. So just a note to the console to print out that something's happening. It's a really good little just tip to do when you're doing any kind of scripting in Unity, just to put sort of debug.log statements down. These will never make it into the final package build if you ever package this out. So, but this just gives you an idea of what's going on. And then here we're going to call this function here called start coroutine. I'm not going to go into detail what a coroutine does specifically, sort of from a computer science point of view, but essentially a coroutine suspends processes until a condition has been met, which is what we want to happen in this case, because what we're going to do is we're going to pause the current video, so it's not going to loop, and then we are going to set an animation transition, which is going to play our fade, and then we're going to wait half a second, and then we're going to load the new scene. So hopefully this bundle of functionality here that's in this IE numerator creates quite a smooth scene transition that also allows Unity and the computers to kind of catch up to itself. And this is how we are going to transition. Yeah, sorry, Diane. You can certainly the 360 video import would be probably accessible, maybe for beginners. If you just wanted to sort of transition out with no, if you just wanted to load the next scene with no transitioning, you could just call load scene in here. So there are simpler ways of doing it. This is just, I didn't know sort of what the experience level of the room was, so I thought we'd sort of cover this. But like I say, you'll have the script sort of in the resources package. So once we've finished this, what we're going to do is we're going to go down to our video player here, and the scene name we're going to leave empty, because this is actually, no, we're not going to leave that empty. What we'll do is we'll loop. So we are going to go back to, I think it's Eiffel Far. And what should happen now is, and the next bit that I want to do, sorry, it's really hard. I mean, to give you some sort of insight into sort of how Unity works, on the bachelor's for computer games, I'd probably spend about 3 years of undergraduate training on this, and then also with the master students at UCL, this has probably been about 20 weeks worth of work in Unity. So this is really just sort of like a very brief overview. So prefabs here. And this fade prefab I'm just going to attach to my XR rig. And a prefab is a complex game object. It's a game object bundled up of other game objects that has persistent parameters through. And given sort of the experience that we've got going on here, I won't sort of dive too much into this prefab and sort of the inner working of it. But basically what we're doing here is we're putting a black image up on the screen. And if I just get my animator component. What we're doing is we're using Unity's animation tools and its UI tools to very simply just put an image in front of the camera to handle a transition. So what we're going to do now then is if we go back to the Eiffel Tower, we're just going to save that. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly hit play here, and we're going to run through all of these scenes here. And as you can see, our video player's found our transition, our animation transition there. And actually, I'm just going to mute the audio there. So just whilst we're seeing this sort of run through, I'm just going to sort of look at some of the questions here. Did you miss the bit where I converted the equirectangular video into the cube map, or is that automatic? So when you create the render texture, as you see there, that sort of fades to black and fades in quite nicely, and that avoids any frame dips. When you create the render texture, you set that in the video player component in your target texture there. No, Unity's, so I should clarify, there's a lot of use of the term editing in the chat. Unity's not an editing tool. Unity's a 3D package, so Unity is really more for presentation. You would actually edit the video in Premiere, and then your editor would provide you the video file to render out into a 3D 360 experience. I'm just going to move over. So what's the advantage of sequencing 360 video clips with transitions versus doing the same in Premiere Pro? In Unity, you can actually tie that into other sort of 3D experiences. So the idea with Unity would be that you can sort of sandwich this in between other immersive methods that you're using to tell narrative or present to audiences. And yeah, I think that's really about it for Unity. That's all I was sort of asked to show, was just sort of popping in sort of 360 video into Unity and sort of merging them together. So I think we're probably just in time for the Q&A now, I probably think. So there we go.
Chris, thank you for sharing. Ben, thank you to you as well. It was great to have you both on here. And I'm really excited that we were able to dive into the pre and sort of post-production as well as into Unity itself. Having a really solid understanding of both of those aspects is really important. So I really appreciate both of your insights, and I learned a ton myself. Quick AV check, audience. Are we good? Can you hear me? You can see me. We're all good to go. Just a quick thumbs up in the chat from somebody would be great. Please and thank you. Awesome. Thank you, Cindy. Guys, I know we flew through this content today. We really covered a lot of ground. Couple quick reminders. So first, this is recorded. We are going to send everybody the recording. All of the assets we've referenced, the code, the scripts, it's all going to be there. We really are running short on time here, so I'm going to do my best to get through my bit really quick here before having Ben and Chris come back up on stage. I've got a ton of questions that I can see beyond, or behind the scenes rather, what I would ask the folks in the audience to do. I don't think we're going to get through all the questions today, unfortunately. If you navigate over to the questions tab, you can actually upvote the questions that you most want answered. So we'll address the most upvoted questions in the Q&A portion. Last thing, I am going to publish this poll too. This one is super important for us. It helps us sort of know, should we do more workshops and webinars like this? It really helps to curate it. So what I want to know is, on a scale from 1 to 10, how likely are you to recommend this workshop to a friend? So please head over to that polls tab, answer that one for us. Really helps us a lot. So thank you in advance. Moving on, let's talk more sort of about, what's next and everything else. If you've enjoyed learning more about 360 video content today, we would obviously love to have you or your team join one of our programs. No matter who you are, what your current skill set is, what you want to build, we can help. We'd be happy to connect with you to see if your goals align with the programs that we offer. On screen here are a few students who have studied with us, starting from scratch for the most part, that have gone on to do incredible things in the VR and AR industry and just make amazing waves. Here on screen, these are our flagship full courses at CircuitStream. On the left, the beginner-friendly 10-week part-time course designed to teach the fundamental skill sets and best practices for prototyping VR and AR content in Unity. Is our 10-week course. Our next cohort here begins on April the 27th, and the tuition fee there is on screen. A little bit more on the Project Accelerator course in a minute. To be honest, I think I'm going to glaze over that just in the interest of time today. This is the more advanced course for folks that aren't new to C#, aren't new to Unity. They've got that basic skill set and the fundamental skills. We can talk about that in a second. The XR development with Unity course specifically is designed to get you comfortable prototyping your own experience from scratch within the Unity engine. Don't worry, we do start with teaching C# as well. So Diane, don't worry if the coding looked like spaghetti to you. We do teach the fundamentals of the language, basics of scripting, and we layer that into the course as well. One of the things I mentioned up front, the one-on-one time, the one-on-one support, this does include 10 hours of one-on-one appointments. Every week we'll meet with you for extra help, extra support, or to help you bring your very own project idea to life. And here you can see really what we're trying to help you do is bring your own idea to life, how to develop for multiple platforms in the Unity engine, managing your projects, designing around the benefits of this headset or that headset, and leveraging our network. We do also have 2 beginner-friendly short courses, just like the flagship full courses there. They are both live, they are both online, and they're all part-time as well. The C# scripting course in particular is great for beginners to take ahead of the 10-week course. It's a 3-week program that, as the name would suggest, dives into the fundamentals of programming with C# specifically, and how to go about using Visual Studio within Unity to begin creating scripts, which is obviously, as Chris was alluding to, an essential part of the development process for content. Our next course here actually gets started on March the 15th, so feel free to get in touch. The Intro to XR Design short course can also be taken as a standalone program or in conjunction with our other courses that we offer. We really believe that it's essential for XR designers to have, at the minimum, a basic skill set in developing content rather than just designing it. So this program is great for folks looking to go the other route and sort of add some design skills to their toolbox, or for current 2D designers looking to upskill and transition their skill set to incorporate XR. It's a 5-week program that teaches the fundamentals of visual design, sound design, special effects, and it really discusses sort of the limitations of technology in the mixed reality spectrum as well. Like the 8-week XR Project Accelerator course, this Intro to XR Design course begins on March the 1st as well. Now, for all three of these courses, I can't stress enough, no experience is required. No previous skills in Unity or in C#. We really do start from the very beginning. Today's content was condensed, so please don't let that stop you from learning more. So again, beginners have no fear. I'm going to glaze over this content here just in the interest of time, diving into the benefits of our more advanced program. But just given the audience today, I would say that we can talk about it, but certainly we recommend that you start with the 10-week course if you are new to this stuff. Now, for all of our courses, we do offer payment plans as well. So if you want to spread the costs out over an extended period of time, absolutely take advantage of one of the payment plans that we offer. And in the interest of taking a holistic approach to education, which we believe is essential to learning new skills, we've created a couple of bundles here that any new student is welcome to take advantage of. So the VR starter pack on the left here, you'll notice that it's the same price as the 10-week course on its own. We really want to invest in your educational experience with us, which is why we've centered this starter pack around the very basics. So we'll get you started with our C# short course first, and then have you take our XR development with Unity course thereafter. And as long as Oculus can ship to wherever you are in the world, we will also send you a new Oculus Quest 2 headset as part of the registration. Not to be forgotten, we've also created the VR Starter Pack Plus, which is the same package, but you can also do the Intro to XR Design short course at 50% off. And again, it wouldn't be fair to offer a starter pack without also offering a more advanced bundle to folks that might consider our advanced course, and it's the exact same structure. So Project Accelerator, refresher course in C#, new Oculus Quest 2 headset, and the Accelerator Pack Plus would be the same, but with the Intro to XR Design course added on. Now on screen, you can see this is our admissions team. I'm your host. You've already met me, so that's me. It's not new. My counterpart, Steph, he's actually enjoying some well-deserved time off for the last few days of this week. So normally he would be in the background answering questions this workshop as well. But Steph is also on the admissions team here. We operate a little bit differently than some other companies in that Steph and I are extremely involved in the before, during, and after your registration process with us here at CircuitStream. We're here to help answer any questions that you might have about your project goals, your specific ideas, anything technical about Unity, a VR headset, financial aid for our courses, and so on. This is a free service that we offer, so please don't hesitate to get in touch with either of us if you would like to discuss anything that we've said today. You can reach out to us directly via the website, or if you've already connected with one of us in the past, feel free to give us a call, send us an email. We would love to chat. Also, if you want to do some more research on your own, head over to the learning page on our website to learn more about our courses, or to download a syllabus for what we're teaching, or to submit an application to enroll in one of the courses, and we will definitely be in touch. Okay, I tried to get through that as quickly as I could, so thank you for bearing with me. At this point, I would like to invite both Ben and Chris back on stage so that we can address any of the questions that weren't answered throughout. So come on back in, guys, and I will start to share some of these questions. So guys, I'm going to go for the upvoted bit. So I will share some of these questions here by most upvotes. And I'm hoping that Ben is able to rejoin as well. Ben, are you there? You are, Ben. Okay, great. So going to the questions, and this one here by Benjamin Weir is the most upvoted question. So both of you guys feel free to jump in and answer. We've got about 10-15 minutes here. Ben is wondering, can you speak to using DaVinci Resolve for editing 360 videos? What do you guys think here? Oh, Ben, we don't have audio for you, unfortunately. One sec.
I wouldn't be able to answer this one. So hopefully Ben's microphone comes back on.
1 second, he says. 1 second.
Can you hear me now?
Ben, we're good. You're golden. Fire
Okay.
away.
So DaVinci Resolve, we've been in, a lot of the 360 creators have been in touch a lot with trying to get DaVinci to support 360 natively. It does not. There are a few workarounds though. So it's just very difficult. There's a lot of things you can and can't do. What I would advise is there is a Facebook group. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's probably something like 360 DaVinci Resolve. And there are these workarounds to start doing editing and stuff in Fusion and like Resolve or whatever else. What you can do, and what a lot of 360 creators do, is they keep Resolve for doing the grading. So when I talk about grading, we're talking about changing the way the colors look. So your contrast, your mood, the styles, and things like that. And it's obviously a very powerful tool. And of course, it's free as well if you're working on a project under 4K. But then again, as I said, often when we're working 360, we're dealing with higher resolution. So then you need to actually use the paid for version. So in short, no, it doesn't support it natively. But there are some workarounds. It's just not very easy to use, unfortunately, which is a shame. But we're still chasing them, trying to get that support in there. And actually, just one more bit. There will be a tutorial by a guy called Hugh, who I think did a YouTube video on how to use DaVinci Resolve. So that might be a really quick, easy way to find that information out.
Nice, thanks, Ben. This one, there's actually two from Serge. Serge, great to see you again. So Chris, I think this will be a good one for you, and I'll do them sequentially. So does the cube map approach work with stereoscopic footage? It's a good question.
Yes, it does. You would create two cube map textures for that. And you may, I'm not sure if Unity supports it, so you may need to write a specific shader for that. But yes, it does. I have seen that done. So
it does work. Okay, great.
Yeah.
And then I guess part two, also from Serge, sort of unrelated, but still a good one for the both of you. What is your approach to perfectly sync ambisonic audio, for example, from Facebook or FB Spatial Station workstation?
I don't really have an audio background, so
Okay.
Unity has a very simple set of spatialization tools when you import your sound files, but I don't know if Ben, you can sort of elaborate a bit more.
I can elaborate a little bit, not specifically to Unity, but within the video. Yeah. So certain things we do to help with the sync when using something like the Spatial Workstation. So in my studio, I work with someone called Axel Drioli, who's like a world-class spatial audioist. And when we're working productions, what we actually do, first of all, we have a time code being fed into the camera and into his ambisonic mic and into his recording system. So already we can sync it up that way. And then in addition to that, we would usually clap sync. So we'd either have a clapper board, like you see in those films when people are like clapping boards, or we would just clap our hand, and we can use that sound to then sync it across the whole project.
Very cool. Good technique. This one's interesting. This one's got a bit of a layer. So, you know, Barak has asked, and Barak, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Apologies if I'm not. Hi, I'm creating VR 180 videos. I would like to know how I can use Unity for my videos, which I think, Chris, we obviously walked through there pretty in detail. Recently, I'm seeing some jobs, you know, involving volumetric capture tech, 3D motion, and I'm interested in inserting 3D video within Unity. Just generally, what is he capable of doing with Unity in his VR 180 videos? Just some general thoughts.
Yeah, so those have been used recently to sort of do things like broadcast sort of cinema experiences. We've used that sort of in art installations. You can have sort of a mix of interaction that you don't really get in a 360 video, sort of as we said during the workshop. When you're in a 360 space, there's no depth whatsoever to the experience. It's actually very hard to do anything interactive. So VR 180 just allows for an additional sort of level of interaction.
Yeah, I mean, it makes total sense.
Yeah.
There was one I saw here for you, Ben, and this is a good one, talking about sort of the pre-filming necessarily, or potentially space. So Andy is wondering, how do you go about filming a narrative 360 video, say, a sketch comedy short with a green screen? So how would you layer other technologies in this type of use case?
Cool. I was actually going to show you guys a preview of how I did do a scene with a green screen. So it's very similar to how you do it with traditional film. What you would do is, if you've got your green screen behind you, we use something called compositing. And so anything which is green behind, we can key out that color and replace it with whatever we want and wherever you're going to be. It's also another way you can shoot 360 without actually having a 360 camera. So you can just place yourself into that equirectangular space and just key around yourself and then place yourself in that space, which is a technique sometimes used. I've seen it used a lot on music videos as a way of getting a better quality image, because you can then use cinema grade cameras and then place it in a 360 space by compositing it. And so compositing is kind of like adding layers upon layers, or kind of removing stuff off. We didn't get a chance to delve into that. I tried to cover as much as I could. I'm sorry, guys, I ran out of time. I think I went over Chris's time a little bit. But yes, it works. Green screen's great. In Premiere Pro or any of the video editors, you can just key it out. And you'll find YouTube's just doing it in a standard way. It works for 360.
Nice. Now, Ben, this one would also be for you. This is very subjective. Of course, I'm sure that there's budget and preference, but in your opinion, what's sort of a good entry-level 360 video camera?
A good entry-level camera, I would say, is the Insta-1X. It's actually, they've come out with the Insta-1X2 now. I don't know if they're at the same price or if they've discontinued the 1X. 1X probably came out about 2 years ago. It's a really small, slim camera. It just record and go. It's got an automatic mode, but you can kind of change the settings. It's not the highest quality camera, but it's definitely good enough. You can easily get 4K. I think it records at 5.7K, and then you kind of shrink it down. Now, all these cameras struggle in low light. 360 cameras, unless you really know what you're doing, don't try doing low light, but outdoor shots, indoor shots, which are well lit, you'll get really good footage out of it. And it's at a much lower price point than some of, cameras like this, which go up in the thousands. This camera's, it's probably about a couple of hundred at the moment for video. Nice. It's probably somewhere between 200 to 400. I'm not sure. It changes, and things are a little bit weird now with getting deliveries from China, which is where most 360 cameras come from, just because of COVID. So everything's delayed and shipping is more expensive. Right. You can probably find it on Amazon.
Nice. Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you for that. I've got a good question here that I think, Chris, this would be more in your element, but obviously, Ben, if you've got anything to add, please feel free to jump in. Which software would you recommend in the workflow for adding interactive graphical elements in this space? This is a good one.
Yeah, I would say Unity again. You could use Unreal. I don't have much experience with Godot, but you can probably do the same thing. And I think there's Mozilla are doing something at the moment, which is like a web-based 3D engine. I can't remember what it's called. I think it's Mozilla Playgrounds or something. So there's lots you can do. We focused on Unity particularly, I think, for this workshop. I know you guys offer a course in it, but just from my experience as sort of a games developer and someone that's moving into sort of mixed media stuff now, Unity by far is definitely sort of the program that's very, very flexible and has a very short learning curve to it as well, relatively speaking.
Right.
So yeah, I would say probably you're looking at Unity as kind of the go-to for accessibility, and then maybe you could branch out to something like Unreal if you felt it necessary. Yeah.
Just keep it within Unity, keep it in-house, maximize the tool before going outside. That makes sense.
Absolutely.
I want to hear your approach on this. Is sort of, I think, unrelated to Unity and to capturing footage altogether, but I think this is an interesting question nonetheless. Andy is wondering, how would you incentivize a potential investor or producer to create 360 content? I'm really curious to hear both of your approaches to this one.
So for my, if you don't mind, Chris, I'm just going to start.
Yeah, go for it.
Some real world examples. Yeah. When I talk, I can be quite enthusiastic and I can get people excited about the idea, but no one understands 360 until you put a VR headset on their head, and that is when you get the sell, and that's when they go, now I get it. You can explain to them how they're immersed, how, you know, the world's all around them. But the moment they put on the headset and they've seen that experience, then they start connecting the dots and like, oh, I see what you meant about, you know, the empathy. I see what you meant about transporting you somewhere else. I see what you mean about interactivity. It's when they're in the headset. That is when I find, you know, that's when they bite. That's when everything you've explained in words and in pictures makes sense. Similarly, if I'm explaining or showing 360 work, rather than actually showing the 360 video, I usually show the reactions to a 360 video alongside the 360 video, and because people can connect with that more, for sure.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you think, Chris?
I would absolutely echo that. I mean, not so much on 360. From my experience, you know, the work that I've done has mainly been in 3D. So I've worked on a couple of plays where we've done sort of a mix of VR and live motion capture. And we've also done this with like dance projects as well. So they are very much sort of involved experience that sort of, you have that high degree of presence when you put on the headset, and it's one of the things that you sort of need to experience in person. Obviously, that's quite difficult at the moment. We don't know sort of how things are going with the pandemic. So what me and partners have been doing is we've been, and I know, Dimitri, you asked about this, we've been sending out APKs to potential investors and stuff, just to give them sort of a taste of what it might look like, and also sort of live streaming mocap video, you know, over the internet. So yeah, absolutely, as Ben says, as much as you can sort of provide them, you know, with a prototype or something that they can get their hands on or their eyes on more aptly. That's where you want to go.
I totally agree. And, you know, relating this back to my experience, as you guys both, I mean, I'm not a developer, certainly, but when I was working with the Toronto Raptors during the championship run in 2019, my first sort of aha moment came from a 360 video experience. NBA TV Canada, in the final round when we were playing Golden State and eventually went on to win, you know, I had been at game one with some clients and experienced it. It was an incredible experience. The day after, NBA TV Canada came and put me into a headset, and they sat me courtside, and I rewatched the game from the night before. And that for me was like, wow, this is big time. So you know, personal experience. You're both spot on with the belief, and you know, a year and a half later, here I am. So just an incredible experience, and that's a story I love to tell. Guys, I think we do need to cut it off there. We're right at about the 2-hour mark for this workshop. Before we go, I do want to let everybody who has made it this far in the audience, Tuesday, the 23rd of February, we are having an open house. So we're actually going to have 2 of our current students, Warren, who works for YouTube and live streaming, who has taken some courses with us, will be coming on talking about his experience, as well as Mike from Indiana University. So if you guys want to attend this open house, if you want to hear about their experience, their journey, how their companies are investing in this technology, please do attend. Also, something we demoed for the first time last week was a live we call it the XR happy hour, streaming on YouTube. Nikisa, who's sort of our resident AR expert, will be joining us. I believe it's next Friday afternoon for version 2 of our XR happy hour. So feel free to check that one out as well. Would highly recommend it. Great opportunity like today to speak with people who work with this technology every day. So that's going to be it for us today. But thank you all for coming. Chris, Ben, really appreciate your expertise. I know it's super late across the pond now. So I really do appreciate you guys sticking it out to the end. To our audience, thank you. Stay safe, be well, and we hope to see you again. Have a great night, everybody, and we will talk to you guys soon.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Great to see you all. Bye.
Thank you.